It's interesting times in this whole
Can't
thing.
see anything. Sorry.
No, can't say anything on here either.
Here we go. We are live now. Welcome, everyone.
Okay.
Welcome to the live stream. Look, I tried to schedule a live stream. It's my first time doing it. I didn't realize I had to press the go live in YouTube as well as in our other thing.
Ugh,
So,
dear Lord, Jim.
welcome to the live stream. That's the third time I've said it. It's good to have your company. Look, to be honest, we're feeling pretty relaxed for this podcast because this is a podcast that is totally driven by you, the listeners. Thank you for everyone who wrote to us, especially over on the Instagram. If you haven't yet joined us on Instagram and follow us there, please do so because we're going to post stories. You're able to ask us questions and do all kinds of things engaging with us, which has been really helpful, honestly, in the last couple of days. We've asked what you've wanted. The answer has been more content. So here we are, more content, more relaxed content as well. And for this live stream, it is our team radio podcast, which means anything that you want to know about the three of us, ask away, and we will get to it in the podcast. At the very end, we're going to talk about wrong answers only, which was Tommy T's wonderful thing to have done as well. All right, gents, shall we get straight into some questions? I think we should start at the very top, which this question comes from Ashley. And Campy, you can answer this first. How do we all know each other? And is this something that we want to do professionally?
Professionally? Well, in this day and age, what is professional? Because I can assure you, me and Tommy...
It's this right now, isn't it?
This is about as myself and Tommy T will get. Our host, Mr. James Baldwin, on the other hand, he's made for this sort of thing, and it wouldn't surprise me if in the future this guy popped up on a few TV screens somewhere in some category doing something because he's very good at it. So I think I've answered that for me and you, Tommy.
Yeah.
I would love to do it professionally, but I'm just not that good. So
I feel the same.
You are. You'll
but James, you are exceptional.
You would certainly do something to your own career if you were on a television, Campy.
Campy doesn't want to become professional because he's too worried he's just going to have to fight all those people he said he'd fight.
Yes, lots of shirt fronting, mainly of Helmut Marko. And look, no one would be disappointed if you did it, Campy, to be perfectly honest. Tommy T, is this something that you would consider doing professionally?
Oh, yeah, down the track. It seems a long way off, doesn't it? Like, this is a not even 3-year-old podcast, and we're still infants, aren't we? We're in our teenage years, maybe.
Yeah, okay, good. All right.
I reckon we've got to that stage.
In podcast years, we're teenagers.
In podcast years. I don't know what they are in relation to dog years or human years, but podcast years, teenagers. I think it'd be awesome to do this with my mates, and I think Campy and I, our dream is to get to a couple of races and get kind of a bit more access than the regular punter would get. But that's just us being selfish, to be honest. It's just fun.
Campy just wants hospitality, let's be honest.
Oh, mate, I think
hospitality.
I think you could get a camera crew and follow us 3 around doing car related things. And it would be bloody hilarious.
Well, we almost had that.
Hospitality, haven't you?
Yeah, tell us about your hospitality experience at the Oz GP, Campy.
Well, like all good things in life, you fake it till you make it. So I think it was 2018 because that was the last Grand Prix I attended. 2019 Melbourne, I was in the States from memory, I think. And anyway, 2018, I went on the Thursday and I think the Friday actually, and I rocked up to the Porsche tent and I just acted like I went by myself. I just acted like I was supposed to be there. And I just said to the security guard, I just said, "Oh, mate, I'm really sorry. I forgot my ticket. Do you want me to go back and grab it?" And he looked at me. I was dressed. I had a shirt on. And he's like, yeah, you're all right, mate. Go on through. So I spent the day in the Porsche hospitality tent. And right when session practice 2 had finished on the Friday, so the security walked up and said, "Who are you?" I said, "Oh, well, I've got a ticket in the car." And it said, "Oh, we don't have a list for you. What's your name?" And anyway, I got booted out. But I spent a good 3.5 years in there and 3.5 hours. And I like anything, just shit talk my way, and a pretty likable character when I get in a room like that, you know.
A couple of green demons and you're fine, mate.
Oh, absolutely. Had a good time. So hospitality is very good.
I feel like, that's the wrong audio sting. I was going to play something else. Doesn't matter. When you say I want to do this professionally, I obviously need a lot of work to get there. Look, why don't we? Another question comes from Daniel, and he wants to know who we are. Basically, can we give a short Tommy T? How about you give a short bio on who you are and what you're actually interested in outside of Formula One?
Can I just say how we know each other? Everybody knows Tommy T on the peninsula.
Yeah,
everybody knows Tommy T. So
why is that? And that kind of leads into this next question. Is
go on then.
I'm a coffee roaster in Mornington at Common Folk Coffee. So we do a little bit of work with James and one of his other companies, Four Paws, and Campy's done some electrical work for us. And we've crossed paths in other ways before. And I think none of us actually realized until we'd known each other for a while, like, oh, we actually like Formula One.
Well, you didn't like Formula One to begin with, did you?
This is true. Well, I'd always had an interest in cars and Formula One, but I'd never followed it enough because of the time zone. And also I had no one else to talk to it about. So
exactly.
It's a hard one to kind of stay interested in when you're just doing it solo. And to be honest, this whole journey, we've just found people out of the woodwork like, you like Formula One as well? Like, why didn't you say anything?
Yeah.
So hopefully we've outed some people and they're now like Formula One people alongside us. It was a bit like that, wasn't it? Before Netflix came out, it was a bit shameful to be an F1 fan. Everyone thought you were a bit weird and you stay up late to watch cars go around in a circle, you weirdo. Like, what are you doing?
Yep.
So now you can kind of be proud about it because people actually kind of get it, and people who wouldn't otherwise be interested are interested. But so yeah, I'm a coffee roaster, and also have a gin company, which is also with James.
Idiot.
What
a dumb idea that was.
Why do I keep entwining my life with yours?
Yeah,
recipe for chaos. Obviously.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
But yeah, I'm pretty simple. I just like lots of good things, don't I?
You sort of, and you're not a traditional, what we call a traditional podcast host. I know Campy said, like I'm pretty with it, and I've got experience doing community radio and stuff. This was relatively new for you, and you jumped in and learned very quickly to have opinions about stuff that you knew nothing about, which was then the Oz F1 way, now the Lakeside Drive way.
Exactly. Just fake it.
Yeah. Campy, what about you, Snuffleupagus? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I like long walks down the beach, I suppose.
Excellent, please. I'll just take notes.
What do I do? I'm an electrician. I work for myself, self-employed, so that's good. What else? Just music, really. I mean, that's how me and James sort of got to know each other, doing a fair bit of music together over the years. And a bit like Tommy, we just started talking about it when we saw each other, and it was flat out. So we just decided to do the podcast. But other than that, I mean, music's probably the biggest thing. I've sort of played in bands since I was about 14, 15, and as a bass player, that would be my other passion other than motorsport, really. There's not much else to say. I have a better half, Bryony, who's amazing, and she's everything I'm not. She's beautiful, elegant, speaks well, and
breathes well,
smart, intelligent. So
better half is a great summation of Bryony.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I feel like I'm the heavyweight champion boxer of the world. That's how much I'm punching above my average. So, no, that's good. But look, I'm pretty simple, dude. I get up every day and work pretty hard and enjoy life outside of it. Nothing much stresses me out, if I'm honest. So
Campy, talk to me about when we started this podcast, because there was a moment where you realized that I was into Formula One. I'm leading myself into a bit of shame here, but what was the moment where you came up to me and you were like, I saw you on?
Yeah, well, you were on that ad for Heineken with DC, the tune himself. So there's a big social media I don't know what you'd call it. It was a big ad campaign just before the Oz Grand Prix. Anyway, I bumped into James, and James was a bit of a knob beforehand. Still is. But we didn't really cross paths too much. Anyway, I walked up to him on this particular day. I was like, dude, that was sick. How'd you get into that? And he was really what would I call it? He was undersold. Not humble. He told me how good he was. And
I humbled myself.
Jeez, who is this guy? No, anyway, but from that, from that, we just started talking about it every time we saw each other. And the idea came up, I should do a podcast. It'd be pretty easy. You can host it because you're good at that stuff. And I just thought, I'll jump on and have a crack. And here we are. Yeah, I'm opinionated. So don't ask me what I think because I'll tell you. So that was it, really. But yeah.
Because we also sort of look, and I said this a couple of months ago, and if you're new to the podcast, welcome. Great to have you here. But I was a part of what ended up being one of the worst looking campaigns ever for Formula One and Heineken. I had an incredible time doing it. I have a selfie with Max. I hung out in the Red Bull garage with Daniel, had all of those wonderful things, got paid to be there in a helicopter. One of the most amazing experiences in my 3 days ever in my life. And it looked like a bag of crap. And it was about the time that came out one of those, I think it was like Treasury or Finance Department had decided to be their own actors in an ad here in Australia, and they were getting roasted. Anyway, I was likened to the Treasury Department, which was really tough to take on, to be honest. Anyway, so I thought I'd bloody start a podcast and just get over it.
The thing I remember about it was as if DC was walking down Collins Street and pulled two randoms out of the crowd that just so happened to know something about Formula One.
No, it was supposed to be nothing. Do you know anything about Formula One? Not at all. In my eyes, I'm like, oh my God, it's David Coulthard. Good acting, idiot. But that started everything about talking about Formula One because, as Tommy T has said, we brought all these people out of the woodwork. Campy and I started it with Michael Best, who is part of the Entente group, who's written all of the music for us, including all of this fantastic stings that some of you love and some of you don't love. But he had the unfortunate pleasure of sitting in between us, Campy, for the first podcast, listening the entire time. And man, his eyes glazed within about 3.5 minutes of starting the podcast. But we've come a long way since then. I wouldn't suggest you go back and listen to our first couple episodes, but it's been an interesting time. And for me, I do this, to be honest. I do this. I want to do this forever. This is my whole thing. And I want to get it to work for F1 properly. That's the story of me.
Where else can we listen to you, Jim?
Work in marketing. Oh, some other podcasts that someone's art. Look, how about I just bring this into this question up? Thanks so much for asking that, Tommy T. It's further down the list. Let me just see.
How did you get on the Extreme E podcast?
Yeah, so the question, I've put it somewhere.
The real question is, why didn't you get me and Tommy T to do it with you, Jim?
Because I want to be the real question. Kelly says, congratulations on growing the podcast, and asked how I got involved. This is probably a better story. So I was watching Extreme E after some Formula One stuff was going on, the first Extreme E package. And I love my podcasts, and that's obviously because I do so bloody many of them now. I went to find the Extreme E podcast, couldn't find it, doesn't exist. So after 6 beers, just send an email to media at whatever Extreme E, I think it was, to find out if they had a podcast, and if they didn't, could I do it for them with all of my liquid courage. And the long story short is they came back and said yes. But the day that they came back and said yes was about 2 days after Tommy T and I had interviewed Michael Laminato on this podcast, and I was down there, and Campy was sitting behind the camera. It was just before we interviewed Michael Italiano, and I thought to myself, not that I didn't trust you both, but I needed some credibility. Needed some FIA credibility, and remembered that Michael was an FIA journalist. So I put this whole pitch together basically with, here's my idea, and here's my credibility in Michael. And they thought it was a good idea.
Michael.
Yeah, so now I'm just leaning on Laminato's credibility and do that. But it genuinely was just me cold emailing someone. And I had a couple of Zoom calls with some people in the UK, and some of them are probably watching or will listen to this podcast as well. And a shout out to those guys because they're amazing to work with. And some of the access to people that I've got now is next level, incredible. So I suppose it's more of this is a story that you hear about people and you go, that's not going to happen to me, in terms of being able to talk to people like Jensen Button.
That's how it happens every time.
Absolutely. So if you're doing content yourself, like, just keep going. That's the biggest thing for us as well, wasn't it, Campy? That we said we didn't want to suffer from podcast fade right from the beginning. And we haven't, which has been magnificent. All right, here's a question from myself for both of you, because I think this is important. What other F1 content do you consume over a weekend or after a race week? Tommy T. Okay, Campy. Campy, you go first.
Tommy's up.
All right, go on, Tommy.
I'm starting to hate it though, but Checkered Flag is kind of one of those ones. that because it's one of the first as well.
Yeah.
I know that that's for me, and I know that's one of the things that we like to doing is get it out as soon as we can. So, I kind of hate listening to it now, to be honest, though, sometimes, because some of those takes are really just UK centric. The most recent ones, I was ready to throw my phone because they were talking about how Daniel wasn't up to scratch and that Lando had more pace. Jolyon Palmer's a friggin' idiot. What's he talking about?
Yep.
I don't know how people can watch that race and think that, but so that's probably one of them. I'm liking. I don't know. James does as well. I'm not sure if Campy does. On the marbles is excellent. That's just
when
good,
it's out,
enjoyable. They're inconsistent,
terrible.
but when it's out, it's great. So, always a big fan of that, and that's kind of good to punch through. But to be honest, like F1 content is not massive for me. I'd rather just watch it. You probably heard, but I'm constantly listening to basketball podcasts. And to be honest, this kind of ties back in because I'm getting sick of people who know nothing about F1, which was me, so I'm kind of guilty. But listening to the Ryan Russillo podcast, shout out to Ryan Russillo if you're listening, which you wouldn't be. But Kevin Clark knows nothing about F1. You need to get rid of him and get James on there, or me on, or Campy on to talk about F1 because they know nothing.
Tommy T needs another podcast to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's frustrating when you hear just people who are excited about it, but just don't have the kind of, I don't know, knowledge beyond the last kind of 10 minutes of watching it to kind of give anything. So just the way they talk about things is frustrating, but it's good to see if I zoom out and just stop being a negative jerk.
Whenever you're ready.
F1 is broadening and it is getting to America and it is getting to kind of the more mainstream podcast, which is actually exciting. Things like Miami is going to be good for that. We're going to get to go to America this year as well. So long-winded answer, but I only listen to really one or two and then lots of basketball.
Campy, what do you listen to or watch?
YouTube is probably mostly where I do it. I do listen to the other Aussie Laminado's one he's got. What's that called? Off the grid. Box. What's the other one?
The other one, the actual one in the fast lane.
In the fast lane, yeah. So I listen to that. I just think it's important. You know, I think it's important. We don't take ourselves very seriously at all, but I like some of the content that's out there. It's a bit more detailed. Particularly the strategy report ones. They're quite good because I'm a bit of a geek like that. But there's a guy from New Zealand who has a YouTube channel called Josh Revel.
Yeah, legend.
And it is cracking. I look from a view and see how hard it is to put together videos just from what we do watching you two guys. But like some of the quality of these guys' work is it's TV professional grade quality, really. So Josh Revel, it's another one called the Cranky Yankee F1, and there's a few other small ones, the F1 Word or F1 World that I listen to, just because that gives some insights into a lot of the statements by team principals that you don't normally hear in your normal feed. So they're the other ones. But yeah, Josh Revel, jump on board that guy on YouTube. He is sensational.
Yeah, good to have some other Australia/New Zealand content being made and listened to. Look, I listen to Box of Neutrals and that's it. I used to listen to stacks of different content. I used to listen to The Race, Checkered Flag. I used to listen to F1 Nation and when that was good and Beyond the Grid. And it's, to be honest,
Autosport.
Yeah, I've just found that they're, and look, plenty of you have said this, that this podcast is better. The quality is better in terms of the audio quality. That's a huge thing for me. It's why this was always sounding so good to begin with. And the fact that we talk about every teams, I understand that Checkered Flag's very British focused and British biased because it's for the BBC. Got it. But when there's no other mention apart from negativity around other drivers, you get over very quickly, don't you? So that's, I think for me, it's nice to keep it to Australian point of view. And also, obviously I work with Lemonado on a different podcast, but it's nice to listen to another opinion that is similar, but slightly different. And him and Rob James do a good job there too. Absolutely. Formula God comments on Instagram, and he's been a big part of helping us grow a little bit as well. And a shout out to him. We'll be doing hopefully some stuff with him in the next couple of months too. He asks, what's our favorite thing to come out of doing this podcast? Campy, what's your favorite thing?
Oh, I just think Discord. Like, I don't use it a hell of a lot, but I do scroll through it. Almost it's becoming a daily habit now just before I go to sleep. I think Discord's the best thing because there's hundreds of thousands and millions of people around the world that are just armchair experts like us that are looking for a bit more access, looking to get part of a community. And, I think the community feel of our podcast is what I like the most out of it. I don't think we do the podcast just because we do it, but it doesn't mean it's ours and we'll protect it like a little, protect it like an egg so you can't crack it. I think, just a really good community feel. And, I think people are starting to have a bit of ownership and direction of it too, which is good. I mean, we got Manus on a few times and he's doing that MotoGP podcast with us now. And that was a really good thing out of that. And, the plan moving forward is to get a hell of a lot more fan engagement on this particular episode, the team radio one too. So, I think that's the best part about it, just creating a nice little community online. I think as it grows, it'll get harder just because if you get the 5,000 people, 6,000 people on there, the comments just come through and it's really hard to keep track. But at the moment, we got this perfect balance where we got, a solid 300-400 contributors, and I think it's really good. There's a lot of banter on there and a lot of piss taking at my expense a lot of the time too. So, and I love that. I bring it on. I'm all about it. So,
Tommy T.
I think it's how much we've actually learnt doing this. Like we knew nothing. Basically.
Oh yeah.
We knew what we wanted a podcast to sound like, which was high quality, like James said, and we wanted to talk about everyone, especially Daniel Ricciardo from the start, because we weren't hearing any of that. So that's basically all we started with, and I didn't even start from the start. I came in at episode 3, I think.
You did,
and that's because I was one of the first listeners and was texting you both feedback like that was shit. Like, put your mouth where your microphone is, dickhead.
It hasn't changed. You still text me halfway through, and I'll be like, oh. Hurts.
But no, so that's all it was really, and we've done so much. We tried to basically do some studio episodes. We've tried so many things, and we've learned so much along the way. And I think we've come to a really good kind of formula now, and I think that's what we want to grow. And I think that's what you guys are responding to is this formula of us just hanging out, talking, having fun, but talking about everyone equally and not just the 3 British drivers.
Just nice to have some structure, I think, as well as what you see is what you get. And obviously your Tommy T's television broadcast review is coming back because that was another bit of feedback that we got from my research. Yeah. People want that kind of stuff and they're identifying. And I agree with both of you. I think what we've learned, but also that we're tailoring it for the community now is what this is about. It's not about the 3 of us at all. It's about the mission that we set out with what was Oz F1 at the time was to create like-minded followers of Formula One in Australia.
Yep.
And we've done that. I mean, we're very lucky that we've got a listenership from all over the world, from, and regular people on the Discord from the US, from Canada, from England, from Germany, from all kinds of places. It's genuinely ridiculous. And I said this to Campy, I think offline a while ago, but when we started the podcast in early 2019 to August last year, we had 10,000 downloads of all time. And from August to last year to August this year, we had 50,000. And from August then, the beginning of August to today, the 20th of September, we've had 61,700. So the trajectory is huge. If you're listening and you've only just discovered us as well because of Daniel's win, it's great to have you here. And we are all focused on making this a podcast for you. And which is why we want the feedback and why we're doing an episode like this, which is answering your questions and giving a little bit more of feedback, I suppose, as to who we are. So you can feel more part of the community as well. Because as I said, it's not about the 3 of us. This is a very important question from Craig. Campy, how many Winnie Reds do you burn through a day?
It was Winnie Blues was my data choice back in the day, but no, it's a habit we've long given up now.
It's kind of in the same vein. Lone Wolf on the chat has gone, does Campy own another shirt?
Yeah. The answer is no.
No.
He's still trying to get sponsored by RM Williams. That's all he's doing.
I've got 4 or 5 of these, but I just could never remember.
They're all the same colour.
I just
he's
couldn't...
basically Bart Simpson. He wears the same thing every day.
Oh, that's good.
What is this?
Great. That's great.
No, look, I lost any sense of what was cool and what was not cool at about 24. I think I made a brief comeback when I bought some long black t-shirts when I was 27. I was like, I'm back with the cool kids. But that's about it. I couldn't care less about that stuff.
Yeah, and Tommy T, look, he wears good snakehole stuff, supports other small businesses. I'm wearing just another YouTube television thing, which is a fantastic show. Mighty Car Mods, love that. But while we're on the YouTube thing, shout out to Joel and Michelle. Thanks for your comment. Coffin RX2 says, no questions, but love it. Although finding out you're from Melbourne is disappointing as an ex-Adelaide resident. You stole our GP. I think it's time to move on, to be perfectly honest. But I was born in Adelaide, so there you go. You're welcome. Tom says, great. Love the podcast as well. Lone Wolf, does Campy own another shirt? That's what I laughed about 15 minutes ago. But I just randomly laughed because I saw that. And Creaky27 says, great to hear a mention for Cranky Yankee as well. He is solid. Absolutely. Yeah. Love this question from George. Tommy, I'm going to put it to you first. If the television show Survivor ran a series featuring current Formula One drivers, who would win?
I would put a lot of money on Kimmy.
Yeah. Kimmy? Why? Yeah. Give me some reasoning. Yeah. So who and why? Kimmy and because?
I think he's ruthless. I think he's sneaky ruthless. He would just do anything. He would play dirty. He'd do whatever he wants. Because you got to be like cards to your chest for Survivor. It's not about just being the most talented. You got to have a poker face. And you got to like keep everyone on side.
He's got the best.
He's everyone's favorite, and he's got the poker face to kill everyone. Yeah, I'd back him in. Who do you reckon would do the worst?
Do the worst, Lance Stroll,
Mazepin.
Out in the first round. Who's going for home first?
Lance Stroll.
Yeah, like, Stroll. You're right.
Where's my dad? Get out.
Yeah, well, Mazepin would struggle too, but he's Russian, so he must be sort of tough somewhere.
He'd be more ruthless, though. Yeah. So who do you think would win, Campy?
Yeah, I reckon I'm going with Tommy. I would have picked that just because Finland, that's a tough environment to grow up. They ski everywhere, so they're,
They ski everywhere, ski to school.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough environment. It's not like they, look, Kimmy for me.
Kimmy, okay.
Lewis would go out pretty early too. He'd miss his dog and be like, "Oh, I'm too emotional. Get me out of here. I care about my mental health."
I'm going to say Seb because he's a bee farmer and knows how to live off the land and knows how to play politics as well. He can multi-21 if he needs to. He can get all up there and just extinguish someone's flame if he needs to do it. I think Seb, and he's a wise old cat now. He's not there to prove anything.
That's a good call.
Anyway, so there you go. Thanks, George, for that question.
Alonso's too emotional.
He's too busy gesticulating at people to actually play the show. Andrew and also Tom asks this question as well on the YouTube live stream. What should Oscar Piastri do if he wins Formula 2 but doesn't get a Formula 1 drive? Campy, let's go to you first. What do you think he should do?
Well, I saw this question. I think... Well, it's out of his hands. That's the problem. He's a Renault junior driver, and I think I spoke about this last week. Renault has to throw him the biggest bone they've ever thrown to anyone ever before, because you've got a guy that's won F4 in the European in that category, F3, F2 in 3 consecutive years, which I don't think's ever been done by anybody in the history of the sport. We've seen him win F2 and F3 on back to back, but with the F4, that's different. So, look, what does he do? I don't think there's a lot he can do about it. Renault have to give him a bone. I think Weber's pretty clear. Weber will line him up. Probably he'll try and line him up with a Mercedes somewhere and maybe a Le Mans drive. Probably DTM. You want to keep him in some, single seat open wheeler categories because it just driving the other cars. It's a different driving style and you lose a bit of technique. Doesn't mean you can't come back and can't do it, but look, unfortunately, it's not up to him. And in this sport, money dictates a lot of it. So if he doesn't have a lot of financial backing, it's going to be hard to get him into a seat somewhere that will find him competitive. But what's the Japanese one, the Super Formula?
Yep.
That would probably be good. But then again, Alpine should be funding every cent of that in that junior academy team too. So
yeah, and I think you've mentioned it before, Campy, is that you'd want to have him testing basically every week in P1 for Alonso. Yep. Alonso doesn't need his P1s anymore. He doesn't need to be out there wasting time. They can find all the information through Piastri, and that means he's in that car, he's learning, he's getting used to the tracks, and he's getting used to the weekends, and that's a way you can do it. See how much time you can get him in the car without actually being a driver.
And Alpine / Renault, like they're not worried about money either. So they shouldn't be taking Zhou on the, because Guangzhou's bringing 30 million to the table. That shouldn't even be a factor in what they're doing. The amount of money that they spend on engine development just to get into F1 and that investment initially should say to me they don't care about that 30 million pounds. It's just chump change to them. So.
Willie from Wagga, he asks, have you ever been to an F1 weekend away from Melbourne? And bonus question, what's on your bucket list? Tommy T, have you been to anywhere else?
No, I haven't. I was close. I was about a week the wrong side of being able to go to Brazil 2 years ago, which would have been awesome. I was there for a coffee buying trip. That would have been awesome, just to accidentally be in the right spot.
That's right.
Wasn't to be. But that would be pretty fun. Bucket list. That's a tough one. I think it's got to be Spa for me. I think that'd be pretty incredible.
With no rain, Manus.
Is it possible? I think that'd be pretty incredible to go watch there. The other one's got to be Monaco, surely, because that's not for the racing, but just to be at Monaco for the weekend would be.
What do you reckon, Campy?
Look, my heart says Monaco. Austin, we would definitely be going to as soon as I can leave this shithole of a state for a couple of weeks and come back and not worry.
I'm with you, yeah.
Austin, I spent about 8.5 weeks in the States a couple of 3 years ago, and mate, it was all in Texas and Louisiana, and I can tell you what, Austin is. Before Austin came a thing and everyone started moving there and being like, globally known as a cool place, I went there just before, and I can tell you that place is unbelievable. Just the culture. It's a bit like, New Orleans is a bit like that too, but Austin's definite. But that 4 events in this sport, they say there's 3 M's. There's Melbourne, Monaco, and Montreal. So in Canada, as events, they're the 3 best events to attend just because there's so much stuff going on track.
Yep.
Brazil, it's awesome and it's a spectacle for us looking at it. But as a category, it's the only thing you see is F1. You don't get any of the outside pit stuff that we see and we're used to in Melbourne putting on events. Yep. It's just F1's on track. So I hear that they should sort that out, and it's quite boring. But for the events, I think those 3 as events to go to and be entertained and not just be there for the racing. I think they're the 3 that would probably get the tick outside of Austin.
Yeah, I definitely want to go to Coda. That's definitely on the list, and I know Campy.
I checked out the track when I was there.
I know we've spoken about it before. Look, I think next year we should definitely make a move to have, even if we can record an episode over there, that'd be great. For me, though, I definitely want to go to Suzuka. I love Japan, big time. Love Japan. I think that is an incredible circuit as well. From a European point of view, though, I actually think I'd rather go to somewhere like Mugello. I know it's not on the calendar, but just looking at that circuit from last year and the kind of racing that we got, it just seems like incredibly beautiful place to be, and all of the towns around the outside of the circuit. So, but for me, I think Suzuka and Coda are the 2 that I would go to next year. Ideally, for me, every single one of them. I could actually work.
Sure. We've had thousands of conversations, James, before we even started this podcast. Like, how do we travel around the world for a whole year and go to the Grand Prix? Like, to the point where we've actually sat down and budgeted it for everything we wanted to do. And, that is the dream, to definitely follow the championship round for a year.
Oh, yeah. And look, there have been things that happened in the last 12 months where we had potentials for that to be the case. And there were conversations, and of course, COVID stopped a lot of stuff. But
Vietnam was another one which would have been super easy for us.
Yep.
But I don't know what's happened with that whole exercise.
It's gone. It's done.
Yeah, but the track was built, ready to go, and it was like 3 weeks before it was supposed to happen. They cancelled the whole year, and we haven't heard about it since.
You should do a deep dive, Campy, into Vietnam and see what comes back.
I think it was money.
Oh,
I think someone didn't.
Well, you reckon? Goodness.
I think someone didn't pay their bill.
Okay, here's a question from Thomas, just to go off on what we were talking about in Coda. Is there anything in the works, Campy, for a fan experience at the next Oz Grand Prix from a Lakeside Drive fan experience? What are we thinking?
Look, we'll do a catch up for beers somewhere, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah, we're in the planning at the moment. We're going to try and set up our podcasting station for a week somewhere in the city, which is quite close to a track, so that we can we've lined up a few interviews for it with some people in the paddock, which will be nice. But it'd be cool to have it set up so that we can do some live podcasts as well, and on the fly try and get some people in who may have a spare 45 minutes or half an hour.
Yep.
Which is within 5 minutes from the track. So got a few places that we're sort of scoping out at the moment. Nothing confirmed, but we'll definitely do it.
We're doing something.
We'll be definitely going to a bar somewhere and having beers, and because it'd be great. We want to have a beer with Munnis too, because
who? Never met him.
He can down 25,000, so he tells us. But
yeah, that's going to be good fun. We're looking forward to that. And look, I still am going to take on Italiano's challenge of doing some neck training. When that happens as well.
Who do you reckon's got the strongest neck?
You, I reckon, Tommy.
I reckon
it's you. Yeah, lifting all those coffee beans over the top. I mean, there's muscle and there's just sheer volume. You probably have the sheer volume of neck. I think Tommy T's got the muscle. It's definitely not me. Let's all agree on that.
He's probably as thick as James.
Just all of me.
All I do all day is look up like this and fit off lights
and go, yeah, that'll be at least 50 grand.
Yeah.
I'll get my apprentice to do it for you later. Alistair asks, well, predictions, lads, of teams to be at the front of the grid in 2022 and who might drop off from the front? Tommy T, who do you think?
Question. I think I'll go for some shockers.
Go on.
That's so hard. I think Ferrari will be back at the front. I think they'll be in the top three.
Okay.
I'd hate to say.
Yeah.
And I think from the top dropping back, I wonder if Mercedes will be in the mid-pack, to be honest. I reckon they're going to have it
One can only hope.
Drop than they expect. Just for a change. It's so hard to know. Like, this is just speculation, really. We have no clue because the regulations are so different and we haven't seen these cars on track. So speculation, you'd think that someone like McLaren is trending upwards. I think Ferrari are doing the right things. I think Mercedes think they're doing the right things. But who knows? Like, it just could all be a gamble that doesn't pay off.
Yep, so, you're not wrong. Campy, what do you think?
Oh, look, I still think the top 4 teams this year will be the top 4 teams next year. But Mercedes have to fall off their pedestal at some stage.
Yep.
But it wouldn't surprise me if they were so far up front. We know what they're like as an organisation.
Yep.
And we know they've got throughout the Daimler group, they've got a vast experience. They've got just truck departments and like other departments within their whole company that have developed cars, right? So there's a whole lot of information that they've got, which they've got access to, which other teams don't have, like your Ferraris. Although they belong to groups, it's a very insular company. So wouldn't surprise me if they just come out and design another car like in 2014 that's just so far and better than everything else. But look, I think Red Bull will be there. I think the top 4 will remain the same. So maybe an Aston will jump up. I highly doubt it. They'll copy in 2023 and be all right.
There it is. Yeah, look, I think McLaren definitely are going to be up there. That's a trajectory. You can't deny what they've been doing over the last couple of years. I think from this point of a regulation change, this is the first time we've ever seen Mercedes in that space. As you say, Campy, they've got so much corporate knowledge of how to make things fast and how to make them quickly. But if we look at the last regulation change, Red Bull had, sunk all of their effort into the year before to make sure Seb absolutely ran away with that title, and then were rubbish the following year. So there's potentially something in that. There's, cost caps trying to stop that from happening. But look, personally, I'd like to see Williams sort of hanging around that 4th, 5th position, because I think they've, flailed around at the back for that too long, and same for Sauber. I would love to see Valtteri Bottas in an Alfa Romeo up there alongside George Russell and Mercedes. just because I'm here for that level of tension and drama for next year, and Drive to Survive would
just
be
a tighter race would be nice. Tighter racing, so that it's not just like you're committed to being. You'll be somewhere at the back this week.
Yeah,
we want to shake it up every different week, every different track.
We can watch V8 supercars follow within a millimetre of each other, and there's no aero issue at all.
Yep.
I don't think you'll ever get that in single seat open wheel formulas. But what we want to be able to see is we want to be able to see cars going through a corner within 10 to 15 meters of each other, not losing so much downforce that they're ruining their tires, so that on these straights like in Baku and ones like China and Sochi, they can legitimately pass without DRS and things like that. So they tell us the technology's there for next year. I highly doubt it. These engineers will figure out workarounds in order to create dirty air behind them. I'm not as hopeful as what they're telling me it'll be. They think at about 20 meters, the downforce loss is about 12 or 13%, as opposed to currently it's about 30, if I remember, which I'd call BS on. But hey, smarter minds than me are working on that stuff. So let's hope they get it right. And can I just say, quick fact, the reason why Mercedes was so dominant is because they had, in 2014, under this new hybrid era, they had a whole truck fleet which was already running hybrid electric engines. So they went straight to the Mercedes truck department and said, give us everything you got, and we'll build off that. Wow. And that is why they had such a big jump start compared to everybody else. Now, I think the motor industry's changed a lot in those 7 years. Particularly in development, and a lot of other manufacturers are caught up, but it wouldn't surprise me if Merck had another trick up their sleeve in order to get the on-track performance next year.
Yeah, well, interesting. I didn't realize that for Mercedes, but that's good to know. This kind of ties in, Campy, because we're getting a little technical. Mark from Melbourne, who also runs a Bulls HQ podcast. He's a basketball fanatic like Tommy T, and he has been supporting us for a long time. So, Mark, thank you to you. He asks, what's your advice for someone who wants to learn more about the technical side of the sport? Is there any go-to resources, Campy, that you would recommend?
Yeah, look, F1 actually does a hell of a lot on the app. There's a whole technical department, and it's almost like its own media. And they look at the cars and the innovations. Autosport's actually really good too. They do some really quality videos online. Other than that, you can actually look up, just get the FIA regulation book out. It's easy. It's just in a PDF that you can download. I'll get that stuff there. It's not so much rules for racing. It's more about the rules around different things. So the MGUH, which is your motor generator unit for heat. There's a whole lot of regulations about how they, dissipate the heat in the engines and actually turn it. They use the heat to turn a turbo, which the turbo then gives the car an extra boost with the airflow through it. But they actually use that heat, and we were talking about thermal efficiency. In the cars, they're actually taking more than 50% of the heat in the engine to make it go. So there's some technical stuff in there you can find out from these regulation books too, which explains it a lot better than I can.
Well, Campy, I'm glad you're here, because that bored the absolute crap out of me, and we need people who understand the technical side. I couldn't care less, to be perfectly honest. But on that note, though, Campy, and we don't fully know what 2022 is really going to look like, but Boo657 from Instagram asks, what do you think will be the most dramatic rule change for 2022? And I think I kind of know the answer to this, but
ground effect cars. So what we've seen in Formula One for at least the last decade and a half and even longer is you're getting the airflow of cars over the top of it to create the suction and the downforce as wind hits the front wing. They try and direct the car directly over and into favorable positions to create the downforce. Next year, we're actually going to a floor, which is it's essentially a three-dimensional floor. A lot of what we're going to see now is the the airflow not so much go over the car, because you'll always get that, but they're going to channel the air to go underneath the car and create that suction or the barrier between the road and the car through the ground. And that's where they think they're going to make the gains in the dirty air behind. They'll be able to clean up the way the air flows under the car. Whatever the word is, dispensates out through disperses through the rear and the other cars following. So that's the biggest change that we will see. The engines are remaining pretty much the same.
There you go. Good answer. So ground effect, which means better following. Andrew asks, where would we like to see F1 race that's not currently on the calendar, country or circuit? Tommy T, do you have an answer for this by any chance?
No, I don't. I definitely didn't type to that.
Yes, thank you. Typing into the shed note. Yeah.
I think we should go to New Zealand because A, that is close to us, and it can be the theoretical home for McLaren at the Bruce McLaren circuit. It's a grade 2 currently.
Oh, well, we'll just do some crowdfunding to get it up to a grade 1.
Come on, New Zealand, get on board. Let's do this.
That's where they run the NZ Grand Prix, am I correct?
I'm pretty sure you're right, actually, yeah. I think that is only fair considering we've had, people like Brendan Hartley and there's Armstrong and et cetera who are in those junior categories, and we've got so many great rally drivers from there too. Give some New Zealand some love. Hey, Campy?
No way that government's spending money on car racing.
There it is.
She's a communist, that chick. That money's going. She's as bad as it gets.
Well, if I would like very much to go to New Zealand. I love New Zealand. Been there many times.
I was actually born there, believe it or not.
No, we don't believe that you were born, mate. You were just witched into existence somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Came out, beard was slightly short, but I can assure you I was fighting them off back then too. So.
Kyle asks, Tommy, quick, help me. Based on the remaining tracks, does Danny Rick have a chance for more podium or a win this year?
Yes.
The answer is yes or no. Come on, mate.
I want to say yes. To say yes, but I don't think so. I think podium, win is things that have to go wrong. I think everyone's wise to McLaren now. I'm wise to Danny Rick, the wily old dog. They're not going to let him get away with that stuff.
Campy.
But love to see it.
Yeah, I said at the very start that which didn't go live, he'll get 3 wins this year, I think.
3 wins.
He'll replicate 2014 with Red Bull.
Love
3 wins in the second half of the year, I believe it was.
Where do you pick it though? Because in terms of tracks like Monza, in terms of speed sensitive, is that what you call it? Speed sensitive circuits. Though here's a track list coming up. Okay, Russia, Turkey, Coda, Mexico, Brazil, somehow still TBC, which will be Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Abu Dhabi. Where of those couple of races,
Coda,
do you reckon McLaren has an opportunity like Monza?
Russia for me. It's a pretty high-speed track.
Okay, interesting.
And the other one will be Turkey. I think Mark Webber got his first win in Turkey, I think.
Danny's liked Turkey in the past as well.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I think Turkey. I think Turkey, because I'm just trying to remember the layout off the top of my head. But from memory, it's not a. It's more of a high downforce, which probably puts the Red Bulls more in the box seat for there. But if they get lucky in qualifying, gets positions, it'd be a hard place to pass. So that's where I'd probably put the.
So Russia for you. So that's one of
Russia, Turkey.
3. So Russia, Turkey, and Monza.
I'm trying. How'd they do in Coda last year?
Well, no one did anything in Coda last year, so it wasn't really a.
Coda's pretty high speed.
Coda's a Hamilton track, though, isn't it?
It is.
Stand his authority on that.
I would see. Well, I mean, we've seen Kimi in the past win there too, so there's potential for VB to step up. Tommy T, you said yes to podiums.
Brazil would have been a good track for.
Yeah, go on. For what?
Brazil would have for Danny Rick.
Okay, so we're still potentially going according to this.
According to right now,
we're not going
there.
What do you reckon, Tommy T? In terms of podiums, then, if it's not going to be for first place, where can you see him, or where can you see McLaren performing well?
Oh, I think the tracks we've mentioned, but I think they'll be on for podiums. I think we're not. It's so hard to know because if Max and Lewis are still acting crazy and crashing out and doing these kind of things, everything's to play for. But if they're kind of like a bit more reserved and not writing themselves off. I think seconds and thirds are on offer though for McLaren.
Yeah, interesting. What here's a great question to follow up that from that Lewis from G Town, which I can only assume is Geelong. What track would you remove from the calendar, and what track would you replace it with? Campy.
Oh, definitely get rid of China before anything else. Is China on next year's calendar?
Yes. And what would you replace it with?
Magello.
Great, I love it. Magello is the default replacement, as it should be.
Not Imola.
For everyone.
Imola's shit.
Yeah,
Magello.
wasn't good. Yeah.
Tommy T, what do you reckon?
Same thing. I would replace it with Magello, but I think I would get rid of Abu Dhabi.
Oh yeah,
they've changed. Abu Dhabi has changed the final section.
Don't care. You can't polish a turd.
Neither do I.
Thing
Yes,
sucks.
correct. There you go. You're not wrong. I'm also calling Saudi Arabia. Haven't even been there yet. Terrible. I would like to replace that with Magello.
the golf.
I don't mind the China track, to be honest, because it can pull in some interesting performances in the mid pack from people like Albon. The last time we were there.
If we added Fuji back?
Yeah.
Fuji could be fun.
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking.
Just get rid of China. Get rid of China. That's just the shittest track and country that has ever existed.
That leads into a good comment from Creaky, who says, I can't wait for Campy's political talkback podcast. Would have me rolling on the floor laughing. Yes, it would also have him in prison. Mason.
Dan Andrews would lock me up.
Yeah, well, he'd have to catch you first. Just walk down some stairs, you'll be fine. Mason from Toronto, a friend from Canada. Thoughts on Monaco being an overrated, glamorous parade or an underrated spectacle of ultimate driver skill? Campy?
Yes, it is an overrated track for all the stuff that was aforementioned.
Good use of that word.
In saying that, the thing about Monaco is that you got to look at these guys, and we're getting down to the point now. The cars have far outgrown the track.
Yes,
but you've still got to be pretty damn committed, and we're talking millimeters and centimeters before you get it wrong here, and you're in the wall at 200k plus. I still think it's very demanding on the drivers to do so. I don't like it as a race and as a spec. I mean, the glitz and glamour which comes with F1, it's a part that I don't connect with a hell of a lot. But hey, it's part of the sport too. I understand that as well, but that's not for me. I'm probably more of a racing purist at heart.
Yes, you are. Tommy T?
I think it's just iconic. I think if they can get the cars back to a level where there is some kind of racing-ish, but to be honest, it's so thin, and it was thin back in the day when the cars were smaller. Like, it's always been like that. Yeah. The thing is, you talk to the drivers, and it is one of their favorite spots, and you talk to Daniel.
Because they all live there. They don't have to go far. They just walk home after the race. Home. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're paid to say that, Tommy. That's why they don't pay tax in Monaco.
There you go. The truth.
No, but
talk to Daniel Ricciardo, and that's the win that he probably holds highest. Probably, maybe not recently, but before this last win, that was probably one of his most iconic wins.
Yeah.
To do something at that venue, like under those circumstances, is just iconic. That's the race win you want that feather in your cap is to win it at Monaco.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think for that reason, it's still got to stick around. I don't know if you can do much other than make the cars a third of the size, and hopefully we're running.
Well, you see the junior formulas, right? Formula 2, Formula 3, they have good racing there because there's an opportunity to pass, and the cars are very similar. You know, without going down that path, you're not going to have the overtaking that you want, which means the most important time is qualifying.
Yeah.
So really,
and to be honest, that's not the worst thing. Is to make qualifying so important because we saw things like people in the past have binned it in qualifying, and it adds that bit of jeopardy. So as long as, I suppose the problem is you go into Sunday with a pretty predetermined result is the only issue. So why would you watch? Well, that's the only frustration we have.
That's true. But then that being said, then Charles Leclerc puts it on pole and then can't even start the race. So
that's it.
Well, I mean, Formula E this year was the first time they raced on the Monaco track. And interesting, they didn't give you lap times. They gave you speeds. Like the speed of the lap when they crossed. That's how they did it, because they don't want you comparing. But from memory, they were running about a minute 35s, which is like 25 seconds slower than an F1 car.
Yeah.
because it just shows you how shit that category is. But at least they're not changing cars mid-bloody race this like at the moment. But in saying that, I think that's where that formula could have some quality racing in Monaco because of how slow they're going and how much smaller those cars are in comparison.
Here's a big important question from Big Nick Nikita from Melbourne. What AFL team do we go for, and do we follow any other sports? Tommy T?
I feel like I'm going to play myself here and
You
people
are.
hate me.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it.
Go on, quickly. Answer quickly.
I support Collingwood.
Oh, why would you do that for?
Fucking scumbag.
Jeez, all right.
Pies. But I'm a good pie supporter. I don't rub it in people's faces. You don't know it till now. So.
Well, we had to ask. Yeah, that's true. Well done.
Exactly.
Very, very good.
But no,
Campy?
I'll be supporting the D's on the weekend.
Yeah, all right. Campy, what do you reckon?
What others? I'm a Bombers man, but I don't watch.
Wearing RMs, that's pretty obvious.
No, I don't watch. Look, I've fallen out of love with footy over the last few years. The way the game's played, and I understand why it goes out. I really can't watch it. This year was better, but now I'm a rugby union convert, if I'm honest. And
nothing wrong with that. Well, who do you support in that?
I'm a Targo Highlanders man, so that's good.
Man,
love that. Down there. So rugby is probably the other thing that I watch most, other than I love my dirt bikes and MXGP, Supercross, motocross as well. So. Yeah.
So who do you reckon is going to win the AFL Grand Final? That's a question.
Look, not Melbourne. Who's the other team?
Bulldogs.
Yeah, I think the Doggies will win it. Look, I've got
so much power.
No, I played a lot of junior footy against Nathan Jones. I played with him in a few rep sides as well, and the fact that he's not in that team for me is just disgusting. So, for his sake, I hope that
he's having a baby, mate.
I know. But like, I just think
he got pregnant 9 months ago.
Mate,
I
know, but for that guy and what he's done for that footy club and the sacrifices he's made for that team, when they've been so shit for so long, and he was a super talent as a junior, came into his career really early on, and basically played every game for 12 or 13 years. I think for him to not be in that Melbourne Grand Final winning side is a bit of a shame for that organisation. They'd know that internally, but that for me says that's why I don't want them to win. So,
well, I support, and I'm not that interested in AFL either, to be perfectly honest, but I support the Crows because I was born in McLaren Vale. That's my whole reason for it. In terms of other sports, I don't. I just watch motorsport. That's all I'm interested in. I do
musical theatre.
And definitely musical theatre. That is my sport.
Not equestrian?
Give me no. But
lawn
look,
bowls?
I do love lawn bowls.
Okay.
Lawn bowls is addictive when
you
accidentally turn on the ABC.
You were in Annie, weren't you?
No, not Annie.
I could imagine James being mad into darts, just like getting up at all hours.
No, only because again, David Croft ruined that as well. Hey, Campy, in terms of rugby union though, big fan when I lived in Canberra, and when I'm about to live in Canberra again, a big fan of the Brumbies, and used to love going to live matches. That's just a whole vibe.
Oh yeah, it's a great game to watch.
I think the D's will win because I think the D's should win. That's my answer to to that. Here's a great question from John in Sydney. One of the last, and we'll wrap up shortly. In your opinion, what would Formula One look like in a perfect world? Ooh. A perfect world, Campy. What does F1 look like in a perfect world for you?
Oh, everyone covered by about half a second on the start to finish. So qualifying, if half a second across all 20 cars, and maybe chuck in a couple of extra teams, so with 24 cars, just think that's a spectacle, and that'd just be great to see.
What do you reckon, Tommy T?
I think tyres. I think there's still so much work. I'm so frustrated with we don't get to watch drivers flat out for any part of these races, which is insanely frustrating. They're always conserving in some fashion, and I want to see, I don't know, these tyre manufacturers come up with something that lets us watch balls to the wall kind of racing for more of it than just kind of conserve, risk it and kind of wear tyres a bit more. I'm sick of hearing it. I want to see these guys go as hard as they possibly can all the time.
And can I just add, you want less variables with tyres. You know, so if there's mandatory 2 stops or 3 stops, great. Then tires become almost useless.
Yep.
You know, less variables. We don't want to see a drop off here.
Don't want to see heaps of compounds just for the sake of it. Just like have mandatory stops with the same tire compound.
Yeah, absolutely. And even Creaky27 in the YouTube live stream chat says mandatory use of all tires at Monaco would help mix it up. But there he is. Again, it's just tire chat.
No one wants to see 1 stops. 1 stops is shit.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Well, look, lads, thank you for listening and answering those questions. Here's the thing. There's still plenty in here that I haven't asked yet. We're going to save them for the next episodes. You've been here for a good hour with us, so thank you for that. If you want to get involved, please join the Discord, because that's where you get to ask all of the good questions. Instagram will put it up as well, or email. But here are the answers. This is going to be my favorite part of it. Here are the answers. The wrong answers only. What's under Campy's beanie? Double K and Co. His bin. James, Esteban Ocon's new chassis. Sam, hair. Nicholas, pop culture. Bailey, the door to Narnia. Mel, the bin. Alistair, spare ciggies. Woodshop, the lid to his bin. Jess, the bin. Thomas, Lance Stroll tattoo. Craig, a bald head with I Love Dan Andrews tattooed on it.
Oh,
Aaron,
no.
the bin. Yoni, Karen Horner's personality. And George, a tattoo of Still I Rise, because deep down, Campy is a Lewis fanboy. Look, a massive shout out to you for writing in, for asking those questions, for watching us on the YouTube live stream. Can I please encourage you to subscribe to this? Honestly, getting to 1,000 subs is going to help a lot. Really, it's going to be fantastic. And also for the Discord, as I said, jump across, because we're having such a good time there. It's probably, as Campy said, our favorite part of doing this. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing as well. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. I will read out all the reviews I can on every race review episode. So Monday next week after Russia, you'll hear us. But for now, that's it. Lads, thank you so much for your time.
Cheers.
We'll see you on Sunday morning at 10:30 Sydney time for our pre-drinks podcast ahead of the Russian
What do you say,
Grand
Sydney
Prix.
time? Say Melbourne.
Because I don't know if it's Australian Eastern Standard Time or Australian Eastern Daylight Time. I don't know what time. It's a time on the eastern side of the country. If you're in a lockdown situation, that's when we'll see you. Okay, goodbye for now.